Hi. Hello.
Welcome. Welcome.
Hello.
You live in California. Sun is shining in your house. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning, I think. So good morning, Susanne. Welcome. Yeah. Your film, It Takes a Family, is programmed in, I'm one of the programmers of the festival, Julia Teichmann. And this is Kristina Tolok.
I'm also a programmer at
the festival. Your film for me is one of the signature films of this sections, talking about how the third generation deals with their grandparents and their parents and what they went through. I don't find it so easy to ask questions for your film because throughout the film, which I saw a second time now, it's always like you ask the question after I asked them myself. I ask myself questions and then you ask them. So it's kind of really, you almost ask all questions which come, on top. So maybe you can tell me, at one point you say in the film that you didn't speak German with your mother, and we see you speaking Danish with your mother, and then you switch to your mother's family, the German family, and suddenly you speak German, both of you speak German, and you speak German fluently. So when did German come into your life? Did it come with Rilke and Kindheit, or?
Yeah, I think it came with, my mother was born in Germany, and she went to Denmark to do a thesis, and walked into a sauna and met my father and fell in love and stayed in Denmark, and I was born in Denmark. But for her, she sang lullabies in German, for instance, to me. But for her, she always wanted us to speak Danish, so she sort of made a great effort that it should be my mother tongue, which is really very inherent in our relationship. So it was not so natural to speak German with my mother, which is actually something that I think is also a big decision from her side. I was thinking more about it when I did the film, or later on, actually, when we were editing, why didn't she? It's a big decision in a way, not to speak your mother tongue with your child. I have children now myself, and so, but I would go on summer holidays to my German grandparents and see my cousins, and so I learned German naturally. And later on, we actually lived in Germany for some years, which, it seems a bit like my mother. She always, she's born after the war, of course, but for some reason she felt so immersed with this whole history, and also she almost had not a guilt, but a responsibility. Like I think a lot in her generation felt. And her way of dealing with it was almost completely, making a cut, a very. So I think for me, I always, when I was a teenager, and we actually, it happened that we, by chance, you could say, or I don't know, moved to Germany for some years. I learned. I was 11. At that time, and I spoke German, but it wasn't that good, and so I had to pick up and learn. And sorry, I lost the thread. But for me, it's almost like I had to learn it from everybody else but my mother. But she would, when I was in my 20s, I moved to Germany again, and I studied art there. And she would send me, Rilke poems and things like that. So, and she knows so many poems by heart, which is amazing. So yeah.
Like my father does too.
Does he send them to you as well?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. I don't know, maybe 2 poems.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's also like, you know, certain poems will follow her in a certain period, and then she will send me a poem. Sometimes because poems are so dense, you can read them so many times before you understand them, or it gives you a meaning. Maybe you never understand them, but yeah.
How come you decided to include talking about poems, the Rilke poem, which is one favorite of mine
Really?
in the film?
Oh.
Yes.
Well, it was. This particular like sometimes she would send me poems, and she will also laminate them, because then you can have them with you, and they, you know, if it's a paper, it's, you know, it gets, it doesn't. So she's very thorough with the poems, but this poem particularly, or she will put them on like cards and then print them and glue it, and with a nice bow. So so it's nice and presentable. So this one I had for many years. And it's natural to use this poem because, or not use it, but to remember it, because I think, for instance, my daughter was actually, when I was editing, she was almost the same age as I am when my mother was swinging me. And the thing that, the children, they don't hang on to, they're not so sentimental. And I think that's something that I wanted to say in that scene. And the easiness and the light, not light as in opposed to heaviness, to leave the burden and to see the beauty, and which is something that I think she wants to tell me with this poem.
Because I found, but maybe that's, you see many things in a film when you see it from the outside, but the film seemed to me like a bit like this poem. It was not like it's not a documentary film like based on facts, and you don't talk to psychologists. It's about diving deep into the history and the story of a family. Yeah. And you try in many parts to discover like the atmosphere, or to tell an atmosphere more than a story, especially in the house of your grandparents. Maybe you can tell me a bit, like it's like this I don't know in English. Du schaffst Resonanzräume, where you where the audience can reflect,
on their own
basis.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell me a bit about the house of your grandparents and how you discovered it and how you decided to include it into the film.
Yes, it's a house that I knew all my childhood, and it has many windows. It's a beautiful house. It has a lot of light, but like it's also a container that contains so many emotions. So you can look at it from many angles. I guess, when you talk about these emotions, or the Schwingung, you also say in German, I don't know what
vibes. The vibes
what are the vibes like? It was a bit, or not a bit, but it was a tense atmosphere as a child. And as I say in the film, I did feel loved, but I also felt that it was a complicated love coming from my grandmother, and maybe a disrupted, or it was like we were defined by something else. Our relationship was interrupted by facts of history and emotional stuff where she came from that we couldn't overcome. And that I felt that we should overcome, and I wanted to overcome in a way. I wanted to you know.
And overcoming it did also mean to make a film out of it. Was this connected, or was the process to overcoming it like beginning before the film, or was it like the film was the process? The film is the process.
Well, what came first? I think it's I don't know. I think this is. I mean, it's like you could see it's a genre of film in a way, you know, to investigate your family. So it's definitely a film in that tradition. But I think what I like about these sort of films is also, I mean, it's a life question, and it really is a life question. It's not, I mean, it's a topic that is there whether I do a film or not, in a way you could say. So that's a condition. So it's like a condition, I think. Or you know what I mean? Like, and whether I had done a film or not, I would have these questions, you could say. But maybe because I you know, it's a privilege to look into it so concentrated, you know, and as you do when you do a film, of course, because
the film deals also with the film deals with this with a subject which is discussed at the moment in science, or not at the moment, since a couple of years. It's very popular in science to talk about that trauma is inheritable or not. So, or that it's written in the DNA in some or the other way. And you touch this subject at certain points is kind of central in your film. Were you researching about it, like reading about it, talking with psychologists about it?
I mean, I think the topic, I think it's called Epigenetics. You know, when I mean, initially when I started, there are so many angles to the subject, and I think your section, Lasting Memory, shows it so well. I mean, these are very different films and how I have only seen some of them, but for instance, and I really have to say, I love the film of Reka Sharpo, your opening film. Yes. I saw it and I don't know, it's a really good film. And you know, there are films that go, that, you know, when you see the search and the archive looking, there's so many ways to enter. But I think for me, it was very much the emotional side of the story that I wanted to investigate, you know, how it affected me and my father and our relationship and his relationship with his mother, how it was so interrupted. And this question about trauma, you know, was it the trauma that defined the relationship, or what came first, or is it something else? So these kind of questions. But in that process, of course, I grew up knowing their story, and I also knew other parts of, like, more distant parts of our family, or, you know, my grandfather's brother's family or their cousins, and I had a sense that they were not so, they were probably marked as well, but it didn't have so negative implications on the next generation. So I think there are also a lot of other questions in play when you talk about this Holocaust trauma. There's also, you know, how a person deals with something. If they say, you know, the glass is half empty or half full, you know, something that's more like who you are as a person. I mean, there's so many things that come into play when you think about how you process, or not process, or how you react to a trauma, and how do you build a family, and what your resources are. But coming back to the question, I mean, of course, you know, I did a lot. I mean, there's so much footage, and I also did a lot of research. For instance, you know, I went to the archive in Budapest to try and find some more information on when my great-grandparents on my father's side, when they were killed, what day, or if there was some paper, when they were taken from their village in Hungary. And I couldn't find it, but maybe I could go back and try again with more specific information. But you know, talking to the people who work there in the archives, they say, you know, a lot of people come and many people don't find the answers, but yeah. But I think it's also, you know, like you said in the beginning, I ask a lot of questions in the film. So I think it's a point that I ask more questions. I don't know if I answer any, but you know, I open a lot of questions, and that's sort of also the point, because I mean, like this woman said to me in the archive, a lot of people don't find the answers, but they come with their questions. It's
at one point your mother, sorry.
No, it wasn't the right answer to your question, because it was about epigenetics. I think when
it's not about that. I mean, that it's not about right answers here. It's about our in life. Yeah, never.
Yeah,
it's about finding out something, I think. So.
But I think this whole, you know, hopefully, I mean, you know, because I don't know. I think because it's a generational play in a way. I mean, it's like you know, you have these 3 generations, and we're all. I mean, it's my. I mean, in the beginning, I say I am influenced by their story. I don't know if it's in my, you know, DNA. I don't know, but it's just I can say that I am. You know.
At one point, your mother says, "It's so good to put these things or these hard or difficult things to rest," something like that. I don't remember it exactly, but it's interesting because you're talking about these difficult. This whole film is about the difficult things, and your mother says it's so nice to put them at rest. But that's kind of that's how I read it. It's because you were talking about it, then you can put the things to rest. That's what she means, right? And I'm interested now, how is it all going on? I mean, you have a 14-year-old son. You say your other kid is 2 years old. That's maybe a bit too early to talk about it, but with your son, you're probably talking about it. So how are you passing on things? Yeah. And also, how are conversations with your mother and your father going on, and how did this whole process, the film, the project, change all of you? Many questions in one.
Yeah. I mean, I could start with, you know, I think, you know, this film has been in my life for some time. You know, I started filming in 2013, and starting with the funding in 15, 16, and of course, my big child, my son, he lived with this mother who was doing this film, and I think, yes, it's important to talk about traumas in the family, because, you know, the trauma, if you talk about them, then, you know, it opens up and it loosens up. It's good, it's important. So that's something he strongly heard from his mother all of the time. And I think maybe at some point, I mean, like, for instance, at some point we went to Amsterdam for a breakdance event, and then I insisted we have to go to Anne Frank's house, and, you know, so I think he's been influenced by, I mean, of course, I told him about his great-grandmother and what happened to her, and why she also was a difficult person, but she had suffered, you know. And so I think he of course it influenced him grow in some ways. And yeah, it would be interesting. I hope I didn't traumatize him with this, because it was a lot. I mean,
talking about trauma.
Exactly, to impose these, but I don't think so. He seems, I mean, he's in a very good place, and no, but seriously, I mean, I believe it's better to talk about these things.
And for your father and your mother?
For my father, I think, I mean, he's seen the film quite some times now, and we've seen it together. I mean, of course, we saw it together before it came out, when it was edited, almost done, and then saw it for the first time. And he was at the original premiere we had at the first, and the Danish premiere, and so it's. I think. He was still very unforgiving for his mother. I mean, for the relationship with his mother. But I think it's sort of opening in a way. I don't know if you understand. I mean, I don't know how to express it. Maybe I don't know. Healing is maybe too much, but it's sort of. I don't know. Help me.
Did you see? I have to think now when you say this because you said you saw the Euphoria of Being, our opening film, and Eva, the main protagonist, she also has this non-forgivingness with her father.
She's very angry with her father because.
Did you see parallels in this? Did you see?
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, she's angry because he put them in danger, and ultimately it's his fault. She feels that her sister died. But in this case, I think my father feels it's unforgiving. No matter what they've been through, they shouldn't have treated him this way. And in a way, he's right, but he is right, exclamation mark. I mean, it's not something that you can relativize or, say, okay. But I think for me, the question is, how do you want to live your life? Do you want to feel that there's always a grudge or anger, or do you let go for your sake, not because, but, and I think it's loosening up, but you should ask him, of course.
And do you think the film, it's again asking you because you're here, maybe you can pass my questions over to him.
I will pass the question on.
And best wishes also, please.
But it's funny because he actually, we had the world premiere was before the whole Corona thing. It was at DOK.live, where the film was in competition, and he was there. So and my big son, or my son was there as well, and my husband, and he I think he said he was content, in his own words, So, yeah.
He could also interact with us through the chat. So if you
yes, true. If you're listening to this, please take part in the chat, and we would like to know if it changed you in a way. Of your daughter.
But I think it's. I mean, it's a good question if you can change at all, and I think it's also. I mean, because I think my questions in the film are not just. I mean, it's mostly, of course, how the trauma affected the family, but also how we understand our family and what we tell about our own family. Like, if you have I strongly feel that, if I feel that my grandmother was persecuted and had to hide and was in pain which are all things that happened and that are there and exist. And that's the thing that's the narrative of my family story. Then it gives you, but if I also see, okay, she was a strong woman, she survived all this, and she also built a life despite of all these things. And, it's that story is also important. So it's also like, what story do we take with us, or how do we see, if she feels, okay, I was always unlucky and I got the shortest straw, and it's not a good way to live your life. I mean, you can be as good as and do all good, but if you feel that you're always be persecuted, or there's someone after you, it's not good.
I found it's a striking moment in the beginning of the film, talking about your grandmother, where she sends you to get all these papers, right? She all kept in this hanging, however this is called, Hängeordner.
Yeah.
And there's this small part of it which says like Auschwitz papers, which hit me really. It's a striking moment.
It's not Auschwitz because she was in Mauthausen, but yes, yeah.
But it says Mauthausen papers. I don't know. I don't remember. It says concentration camps papers. It says.
Yeah, she put it on.
She put it herself on this. This is so amazing because she tries to forget all this, and she says we have to move to the future, but she kept all this.
Yes.
Did you ask her why she kept all? Because it's like a contradiction.
Yes, but but it's a huge contradiction that, I mean, it's almost a bit like, you want to talk, but you don't want to talk. And I feel that a lot of these films in your section talk about that, exactly that. You want to, but you don't want to. I don't know if you agree, but that's my feeling, that my grandmother, who was also Eva, and there were many Evas in Budapest.
Because I say Auschwitz, I was just mixing it up.
She was liberated from Mauthausen, but I think the film also discusses the fact, should we talk or should we not talk? How much am I allowed to talk and ask questions? And how much it's her story, but because it affected our lives as well, has it also become our story? And if it has become our story, shouldn't I also be allowed to address some questions? I think that's so. In that sense, she keeps these papers, of course, because she also got the restoration, the money from the claims conference, and that was papers that you would. That's actually the papers that she showed me. It's from that she sent to Germany for the claims conference. But yeah, sorry, it's really. Is it? Yeah, it's. Sorry, it gets me in a way. I don't know if this is live. I don't know. I think she wants to talk, and she doesn't want to talk, and it's. There's also the question: is it okay for me to, which I lay open in the film, and it's a discussion because I want to be honest or to discuss this really, and it's a question to you as well, or to our generation. What is my need? What is her need in this? I have some wishes and desires, but should she answer them? She's also allowed to say no and say stop. But I show also parts where I maybe go a bit too far, but I want to show it. I could have edited it out, but it would not make it a real discussion. So I think it's a discussion between the generations.
Mm-hmm.
And also I felt like, come on, I mean, don't be so cheap, you know, and keep everything to yourself. Give me something, not give me something, but give me answers. So it's important to me. And I love you, I'm your grandchild, you know, but so, and how much, you know, we're connected. So how much what's our responsibility to help each other? So like that.
And to have a real discussion, we could enter the chat room and check what's there. Are there
actually
questions in German, auf Deutsch, or in English?
There's a nice mix of both. Since you already mentioned the process of filming and what parts your grandparents took in it, there's actually a question. Have there been situations when someone in your family, your parents, your grandmother, asked you to stop the film or even the filming itself?
Yes, I mean, not from my parents, because I think my parents were very, I mean, the relationship between children and or like in many cases it's unconditionally almost, so they will do anything for what I ask, you know. So I think they but in any case they were very supportive. But there is a part where my grandmother actually said, at least, you know, stop, I don't want this. And we were in a fight, and, you know, and it took really some months to overcome. But I think it was, and I show it in the film. There's a place where she says, I don't want this. I don't want that people should know that I was liberated from Mauthausen. And there's a, yeah. But, and I think this is, for me, it was very important that we overcame this. And, you know, then we would just see each other and do other things and not talk about this at all. Or I would bring my husband, who she really likes, and, you know, do other things. And in the end, I think it's important that she says that it's important. That's, at least that's what I felt, that she said to me, it's important to talk about these things. And also because I also spoke to other family members, and also there's a scene at the end where my father's cousin Kathy, I don't know if you remember that scene. I'm very close to her, and she has been a supporter of throughout the process of making the film. And it's interesting because, you know, I knew her as a teenager. My father would bring me to San Francisco and meet her and her family. But as a grown-up, I meet her again, and it turns out that she actually worked with the Holocaust survivors as a counselor, helping them to fill out their papers for the claims conference. So she would actually interview survivors and, you know, about their experience. And she's a very, very sensitive and wonderful person who would have to facilitate and listen and help these elderly people. It was, of course. And I also talked with her about this, you know, because some people had this, I mean, some survivors, of course, it was easier for them to talk. Some hadn't talked to their own family at all. It varies, but in many cases, sometimes it was the first time they ever talked about this again after many years. And I asked her, you know, do you think it's okay that I have these questions? You know, what do you think? But, you know, she sort of said that it's also about the validation. it may be painful, but it's also about the validation that it really happened. And that means something, that it's actually real and it actually happened. And that means a lot to the people who endured these things, you know? So I think that sort of validated I don't know, the film as well, in a way, to do it, I think, yeah.
Yes, it's a very powerful sign that she actually signed off in making a film, someone who denied being Jewish, if I understood it correctly, during her time in Denmark, and that it was a big non-topic in the family of being, of having been liberated.
Having been liberated.
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
I was.
Yeah, and of course the fear, and also there was a point where she said, "Come on, you should also think about your own safety and your own family." And so a lot of fear that, I don't know, it could resurface, which I think is ridiculous. But maybe not. I don't know. But for me, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, let's hope so. There is another question about strength and power. Where did you get the inner strength to make the film and to deal with it and get through all the pain and trauma? Maybe not all of them, but some good part of it, I hope.
Well, I think it really was. I mean, it also is a privilege, and there's also a lot of love. So I think it's also that you find, you know, the strength in the family, and you dig in your family. And but of course, I mean, when last year we were editing the film, and you know, there's a scene in the beginning where my grandmother, she's very tired, and I think it's you know, really a classical thing when you can feel very tired when the subject is heavy or difficult. It's like she's thinking about her trauma, and I had a point in the editing room, I was so tired. So like, you know, so when you so it's like, you know, my father, there's also a scene where he's so tired, you know, so the whole subject, of course, is heavy, you know, so how do you know, but I think I also talked with, you know, other filmmakers who made films about war right now and like heavy subjects. For instance, you have the film The Cave, you know, and I talked to Firas when he was doing his previous film, and you know, he was pale and tired in the editing room. So it's if it's a heavy, I mean, it's so easy to say heavy subject, but I mean, when you do a film about a tough, I mean, it's about child abuse or child violence and Holocaust trauma. Of course, it's not the happiest subject, but there's, you know, I don't know. I also had a very newborn daughter at the same time, and she was bringing me a lot of joy. So at the same time, so I don't know. Life is a mix, a multitude of many things. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right answer. I don't know.
Well, there's another follow-up question to this.
Okay.
Afterwards, I will give the word back to my dear colleague Julian. Ist der gesamte Verarbeitungsprozess für dich heute abgeschlossen? Do you want to answer this question in German, or maybe because it is asked in German?
Ja, das ist eigentlich eine Verlängerung der ersten Frage. Ich glaube, es ist nicht völlig abgeschlossen. Es wird nie so ein richtig abgeschlossenes Thema sein, aber es ist auf jeden Fall das Verhältnis zu meiner Großmutter hat sich verändert und entwickelt. Und zu meinem Vater. Kann ich sagen. Also positiv. Ja.
Schön. Mich interessiert dieses ganze, jetzt fange ich in Deutsch, wieder zurück nach, I didn't even realize which language I was speaking. I'm interested in the Super 8 material and the old pictures you found and you included in your film. And there must be loads of. It's probably not the whole thing we see. So your father must have been, or maybe it was your grandparents too, passionate hobby filmmakers. So is this a filmmaker's gene also?
That would be nice. I mean, I'm the first filmmaker in the family, so but yes, I mean the Super 8 material, I mean my father he maybe started filming when he maybe got a camera when he was 15, 16, 17, something like that. So there is these various films and I mean the films that where you see me I knew from when I was a child, because I sometimes we would watch them, you know, like if we put on the projector and like for fun. But there were also things that I found that I've never seen before. And with my grandmother, for instance, there's this, she's running into the water, for instance, and many other things. Yeah, well, I mean, another thing was there was, I mean, this was all after my grandmother passed away, that I was sort of the one in the family said, can I have these boxes? You know, because there were, you know, boxes of DS. I don't know what you call it in English.
Yeah. I don't know either.
So we
slides, right?
Slides. And you know, you could actually so we found a technique how we wanted to, you know, to show them in the film. But they were so beautiful and there were so many, and there was such a plentiness of material, really. And it was all my grandfather mostly who took these pictures. So that was interesting, that it's sort of like 3 generations, you know, in stills and great, and my shaky, you know, small camera. So it's, yeah, it was good for the film and good for, I mean, yeah. It was also, I think, going back to the question before, it's very healing to see yourself on film as a small child. I actually felt, oh, okay, I'm loved. You know, that's a very big question, you know, am I loved? And I felt, okay, I'm loved, yes.
How come the decision, talking about it's healing, to see yourself in the film? You included yourself in the film, you show yourself in the film, and also in very vulnerable moments. You show yourself crying, you show yourself touched, you show yourself in very vulnerable. Also your protagonist, but also yourself. How come this decision? When did you come up with this? Was it in the editing room, or would you know that from the beginning on?
I mean, I think when you know, in the editing room also, we sort of made the rule that whatever I expect my protagonist to do, I should do it multiply to myself, because otherwise it's not fair, because I'm doing the editing and I have the sort of the last rights to say how this is all put together. So not to be too vain, not to be, you know, not to be too, I mean, make yourself smarter or more sympathetic in any way than you are, and, you know, to be fair, which are probably normal rules in any for anyone, but I think it's especially important in films where you use yourself. To have that, to really test that, and to be very, you know. sorry, I don't know how to express it in English, because we have to, give something when you expect so much from the others. I think that was, and that partly, of course, before, but I mean, in the beginning, I think I thought I was going to be behind the camera all the time and just the voice, like a reversed interview. Sometimes I could talk in off with my grandmother, which you also see in the scene. So she's sort of just listening, and I'm saying, well, I think it's blah 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 blah. I know. So she's actually not saying anything, but I'm the character who's talking behind the camera. But I don't know. I think it felt that I should be there in front of the camera as well. But yeah, it was a process actually, because in the beginning I was a bit reluctant as well. But I truly believe, yeah, you have to give as well. In this genre, in any genre, but especially in this genre.
Do we have new questions?
Yes, I'm very happy to ask you more questions from the audience. There is one very personal one. It's about your childhood, how those threads of history come together, like in school. I can interpret the question into like the threads of like the history in school and your personal history. How did this come together for you, like being confronted with National Socialism in history classes and your own personal background with it?
Yeah, well, I don't think I remember a time before I didn't know about that they had this experience. So I think learning about it from a society perspective came later, actually. Yes.
And
yeah, but I think it's, it's also, I mean, again, there are many good films about the subject. So it's, I guess this is just a small contribution where it's very from this personal family angle. But of course, you could talk about it from a society angle. I mean, there's so many angles. But I just felt that it was, personal angle that interested me and where I could maybe contribute a little. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you started filming in 2013? So it was a long process. And then there is a question about when did you first think about making a film about your family and their traumas?
Yeah, that was maybe 10, 15 years earlier, actually. Yeah.
But by then it was already a film. When you were 10, 15 years earlier, you were already thinking about making a film.
Yes. Very concretely, when I'm in 2001, I was at the cemetery where my grandmother Eva's father is. It's a Jewish cemetery in Budapest, and I filmed her actually there. And it wasn't like I'm gonna make a film, but it was more like gathering material or like asking questions and being curious. So I think it's been more unconscious, but it's like a slow process. But in 2013, I picked up the camera and I wanted to make a film. So it's more like, now I'm going to make a film. Or now I want to ask these questions with a camera, you could say. And then later, when you gather some more ideas and material and concept, it was I'm going to make a film. So, and from there, it was also, before, how to, finance a film and everything, it's a process. Yeah.
Questions?
Yes, there's one. I'm trying to understand it. I'm not sure. It's a group effort, maybe in the end. I would like to know about in what concern that the film prior works as a document for Never Forgiven, especially for this right moment we live as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. So I think it's about contemporary politics, maybe, and about the Never Forget movement, maybe. Am I? How would
I
you
have no
think it?
clue.
I don't know what.
Read it before me.
Yes. No.
Can you read it again, maybe?
Yes. Okay. I will do it slowly again. I would like to know about in what concern that the film prior works as a document for Never Forgiven, especially for this right moment we live in as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. Wait, I have now the question. The person who asked the question rephrased her question. Good. It's good to be live and alive. My question is about how about Susanne sees her film as a contemporary document as a granddaughter filmmaker from Holocaust survivors, how it will or would work for Never Again, with people passing for the new generations that Holocaust happened.
You mean that they can I as a document because
it's about the film as the film as a document, like passing it over to next generations. Like what a bit maybe what I touched before when I asked about your son and what you're talking.
Yeah.
You know how this is also maybe when you show the film, how is it discussed and received?
Yes, I mean, first of all, I think. It's one component and one little element in this contemporary finding out and working out what the Holocaust and what ended 75 years ago, what impact it has. And I think what I want to discuss in the film is what impact does it have today? So there are many good films that talk about what happened then. And I think my film doesn't so much, of course you have to know what happened to my grandmother to understand her pain, and that's important, and the consequences, but it's more about the trauma, how it inflicted and sickered through the generations. And I think that is, I think that's what I wanted to discuss mostly. And at the same time, of course, it's a document of, I guess what I want to say is that there are so many good films that I mean, you can watch Nacht und Nebel, you can watch, the Shoah, there's so many important films that that show the actual atrocities. So this film, I choose not to show archive. I don't show, I don't even, it's like I asked my grandmother what happened, but she never really tells anything in a way. And it's a point that it's there and it's affecting us. I mean, that's the thesis of my film, and I believe it does affect us. But it's not a historical document. And I think there are other better films that honor that, because, of course, Never Again. And I don't say anything else with this film. Am I being unclear?
No, but I think the question.
I just think, when I talk to the TV buyers about my film, and they say a lot of films they're offered at the moment are films from the last survivors telling their story of what happened. It's so important because they're like the dinosaurs and they are almost extinct, or they're going to die soon. They're not there anymore around to tell us what happened. And I think that's why the Euphoria of Being is one wonderful film that does exactly this. But this film talks more about the implications today or how it affected a family through generations, through 3 generations. And maybe also can point, I don't know if it can point to, what about the atrocities today and how will it affect families, like their sons and or daughters and grandchildren, and what are the implications? I mean, the, you know, yeah.
Yeah, but whatever. But I think,
whatever. I mean, it's not the...
No, but talking about the impact it still has on us is also a never. I mean, it's a strong argument for never again, right? So
yes, of course, yeah.
I would like to know, because we are almost at an end, and I would like to know. I would like to know, for a last question, what are you working on now, or what are you working on next? Is you're diving deep into family again, or choosing one other subject, or making a feature film with many props? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm actually thinking, you know, to choose carefully, because you live with a film for so many years, and so I'm, you know, I have some ideas, but I can't reveal anything right now. But I think, you know,
disappointing.
Huh?
That's disappointing.
No. I mean, no. I think I do have some ideas, and but I haven't, you know, I don't have anything in development particularly right now. But it's not my last film.
But it's going to be documentary again, or it's going to be?
It's going to be documentary, yes. And yeah, but I think it's also, I don't know, we're all in this interesting situation with the home quarantine and everything. So it's, yeah, it's definitely, let's see.
Could that be a hint? Could that be a hint?
No. I think, yeah, I'm curious what will happen next year. Will there be a lot of films? You already have one this year, so you're very current in that sense. Yeah.
Unfit you're talking about. Yeah.
Huh? Sorry.
The Corona Diaries you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I of course I want to. I mean, also to show this film now and to discuss it in different ways, and yeah.
Please make more beautiful movies.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Now you're having probably lunch with your kids, and
yes, son.
And what language are you talking with your kids?
Danish.
By the way.
Danish, yeah. And the German has sort of, yeah.
You made the same decision your mother did.
Sort of, yes. Although I sing for my daughter in German, so that's a beginning. But yes, we talk Danish.
Okay, well.
Okay, so that was the last word.
That was the last word.
Well, no, we want to,
yeah.
So,
I want to thank you.
About the Audience Award. Don't forget the Audience Award.
The
Kino Audience Award donated by Dreisat and BR. Please vote for it. You have to clap in the end. And in the end of the film, yes.
And thank you both. And thank you also for writing such a nice text for the film. I want to cite you or use it later on, if I may.
Yes, of course. Feel free.
Oh, great. Yeah. Also, a big thank you to the audience who has asked so many questions.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Have a nice evening. Bye.